It is 7 p.m. Central Time. Once again, coming on 12 hours late. But I do Tao of the Day, and I'm here to present the Tao to you. What is the Tao? It is the Tao Te Ching. It's an ancient text written about 600 BCE, and it is filled with enigmatic wisdom that help us live what I like to consider a reasonable life. What is a reasonable life? A reasonable life is one that you live without asking the world to change for you. When you get to live in a curious way, in a way that is present, in a way that is open to allowing others to be as they are, while you live your life without asking them to change, without asking the world to be different for you, that is what I consider reasonable. And the Tao Te Ching consists of 81 chapters. They went short chapters relatively. Um, they each can be read within like probably 2, maybe 3 minutes for the longest ones. And what we do here on Tao of the Day is you will pick a number between 1 and 81, and I will read you that chapter of the Tao of the Day, of the Tao Te Ching. And if you want to know more about the Tao Te Ching, of course, you can look that up on Google and tell you all sorts of stuff. I don't really care about much of it, right? Like the text in the Tao is really what I love. Yeah, we could tell you it's written by Lao Tzu, presumably, and it was written around 600 BCE, which is the same time that the Old Testament is scholars believe was written. And it is full of different bits of wisdom and advice, kind of, to live your life, like I said, in a reasonable way, in a way in which you don't ask others to change for you, but you accept and receive how others act, and then you learn to live within that. There's no expectation, no, no demanding anything of others, but you live your life, and your life is special. And if you get to do that fully, you get to experience life completely. The Tao says it's important to, I like to say it's important to recover yourself so that you aren't asking others to be something for you. If your life depends on others changing, well, you're going to be unhappy for all of your life because you will always find something that could be different for you. But if you want to live a reasonable life, and if you want to live a life that is full and complete, you're going to realize that that has to start with you dropping your expectation of others. So I invite you up to pick a number between 1 and 81. Like I said earlier, this is about the Tao Te Ching, and it consists of 81 chapters. So you pick a number, and then we will read that chapter of the Tao. And when we read that chapter, we'll kind of relate it back to what you're dealing with in your life. And we'll probably see a lot of similarities. This is very similar to pulling a card for tarot or oracle decks. And when you get to read your Tao of the day, you get to experience like, what is the lesson that you needed to learn today? Um, I am going to read number 50 for myself, and we'll see if anybody wants to come up and share a Tao with me. So, number 50, I titled Awareness of Death. And this is reading my rendition of the Tao, which will be up for sale eventually. And there's going to be an app around this. But number 50 is titled Awareness of Death. Every being is entrusted with life for a time. However, it is only a prelude to death. Some live as optimists, embracing life. Others live as pessimists, embracing death. Some even live in preservation, passively living, advancing towards death. The master lives aware of her appointment with death. This brings her to knowing real life. She cannot be harmed by rhinoceros or man. Her movements flow from her being. She cannot be fooled by illusion or hallucination. Her actions flow from her being. She has freed herself of all separateness, even the distinction between life and death. So What this is saying to me, before we go ahead and break it down line by line, what this is saying to me is that we have to be aware that we are moving towards death. We have to be aware that death is in the cards for us. At any moment, we can die. And when we recognize that, like it says in here, she cannot be harmed by rhinoceros or man, because it is not harm to her to be murdered or to be mauled. That's not being harmed. That is completing your cycle. And that's an important aspect, because when we approach this idea of becoming aware of death as a thing, like every being, as it starts here, every being is entrusted with life for a time. However, it is only a prelude to death. This life that you're living is only a prelude to death. It is what we are born to do, is die. And that's such an important thing. And when we can embrace that, we can recognize that death, this is a part of the experience, then we can be here and present. And as it continues, when it continues, it says some people live as optimists, embracing life. They embrace life and all of the hallucination of this manifestation, all of the all of the games of the human body, all of the emotion, all of the stuff of life. They embrace that. Some live as optimists and embrace all of that. Some live as pessimists, embracing death. This means they're living their life and just being afraid of dying. They're looking at the dark side of everything, and they're not able to live their life. They are constantly worried about that appointment with death. Right? There are people that don't think about the appointment with death, optimists. There are people that only think about their appointment with death, pessimists. Some even live in preservation, passively living, advancing towards death. They don't do anything. They try and keep themselves from living, never doing anything that will flirt with death. And as they live their life, it's so passive. They don't own it. They're not passive. I mean, they're not embracing the pessimist view of embracing death and worrying about it and living in this moment as if you'll die right now. They're not optimist, embracing all of the fun, right? This is introverts and extroverts, kind of, maybe. Some even live in preservation, passively living, advancing towards death, always advancing towards death. There's nothing you can do about that. That's always going to happen. But now, do you embrace the idea of death and the darkness of your life because you will die? Or do you avoid thinking about death? Are you avoiding the awareness of death by embracing life in all of its hallucination and physical embracing? The master lives aware of her appointment with death. This brings her to knowing real life. I've worked with a lot of clients and stuff when they're like, "Well, what's the point of living then?" And I'm like, asking that question is like, once you ask that question and you realize there is no point here, you are closer to real life. You're closer to being. There is no point. There's no point to this life. You are going to have these experiences, and these experiences are going to guide you, and they're going to complete you. The Tao talks about this idea of like, the Tao doesn't do anything, but through it, all things are done. You are kind of the observer of your life. The more you try to control your life, the more you try and take control, the more you try and play the role of God or Tao in your life. Well, the more you take yourself off course, the more you take yourself away from what's truly yours. Your cognitive mind can only, I talked to someone about this the other day. There was a box with a chess game in it on a table in a big auditorium. And I said, I want you to understand that in this box is the equivalent of your ability to comprehend. But in this auditorium is what can be comprehended. And I was like, If you stop trying to predict and control, you will have access to everything in the auditorium. The more you try to control, the more you shoehorn yourself into that box, shoehorn your capability into the box that is that chess box that is in the middle of a table, in the middle of an entire auditorium. The auditorium is what you have been gifted. The box is what you keep yourself in. So letting go, right? That's real life. Letting go of what you think life should be. Letting go of the idea that you can grasp the purpose of this life. You are connected to something unfathomable, and yet you try to comprehend it with your measly little intellect. I don't care how smart you are, you're not as smart as the entire universe. And you have access to the entire universe because within you is Tao. And Tao is the void, the entire universe in one cell of your body. And you have billions, if not trillions, I don't know how many cells you have in your body, but there's a lot. And each one of those is connected to the entire universe. Letting go and saying, death is nothing to me. This life, I'm just observing it from here. I don't have to do anything. She cannot be harmed by rhinoceros or man. Her movements flow from her being. Her movements, everything she does, all the things she does is flowing from her. She isn't afraid. She doesn't try and overthink anything. She is there, she is present, and she is pure. Why? Because she was able to let go of her ego. She's able to let go of her identity, her bullshit identity that's holding on to, her attempt at understanding life. She's been able to embrace real life, the mystery, the wholeness, the fullness of all that is. She cannot be fooled by illusion or hallucination. Her actions flow from her being. Consciousness and what you see and what you experience in life, that's all illusion. It's illusion that's attached to your identity, and it's hallucination. You think you see things, you perceive things in a very specific way, and when you do, that's a hallucination. This isn't really happening. You're just experiencing yourself. Well, I like to say whatever I say and whatever you hear have very little to do with one another, if not anything. you know what I say and what you hear have nothing to do with one another. What you hear has to do with you. What you experience has to do with you, and it has nothing to do with me. You can say, oh, Martin was on here. Martin John was on here. He's talking about stuff, and it made me upset. He is the perpetrator of my victimhood, right? He was the cause of me being a victim. Or you can say, I experienced getting mad when Martin John said these things. Are you being fooled by the hallucination that you're the victim? Or are you going to step up and recognize that these actions are flowing from you, that you don't have to be upset, that these actions are flowing from you and they're here for you to learn? So if you get upset, that's an action that's flowed through you that is here to teach you something. Or are you going to shy away from the lesson and be a victim and get angry and be all upset because you wanted me to say something else? Are you going to grow up? Are you going to be there and not be fooled by the illusion of what you think you're hearing and be able to understand the real sense of what's happening here right now? This is all about the awareness of death. This whole verse is about the awareness of death, dying to who you were, dying to who you will be, dying, your physical body dying, and this identity dying. She has freed herself of all separateness, even the distinction between life and death. Life and death are not different things. And she has freed herself of the separateness of that. She no longer has to be separated from everything. She is all things. And that's what makes this so beautiful. That's what makes Tao so beautiful. She has freed herself of all separateness, even the distinction between life and death. There's no distinction between things. The greatest and the littlest thing, a lion and an ant, have no difference between them. And if we can see them both with the same eyes, then we can see the truth of all things. There's no separation here. And you, even though you will die, it's not bad, it's not wrong. The world will move on. And how beautiful that is. And you will move on with it, just not in a physical body, or not in this physical body, depending on your beliefs. So that is all about awareness of death, number 50. If anybody has a number between 1 and 81 you want to pick, please step up and let me know, and I would read your Tao for the day. I know I've been doing these things later lately. I don't know what that's about, but today I had some plumbers over. I had some things to do in the morning, so I just decided to do it now. No big deal. So thank you so much for joining me. Like I said, if anyone wants to step up, please do so now. Otherwise, I'm going to be signing off. And yeah, I love you guys. I love the Tao. If you are interested in picking a number, you can send me a message and I can send you that. Otherwise, you can, if you benefit from the work I do. So if you're quietly sitting there and enjoy the work that I do, or even if you're challenged by the work I do, but enjoy what I produce, I would encourage you to send me a tip over at Venmo at @MartinJohn_Garcia or through my link tree, which you can find in my profile. Thank you so much for joining me. And until next time, keep recovering yourself.